All right, welcome back to Fan Therapy, and we are back here to talk about Chelsea's new manager signing, Enzo Maresca. Very, very excited for this signing. I think out of the options, I think people were definitely more excited about the Amarins and the Dezerbis, but I think Deserby was seemed like the front runner for a very, very long time. We've done that Brighton route before. We were looking like we were gonna do it again. It seems like it was almost all set on him, but reports came out that Enzo really, really impressed during his meetings, his interviews, and he's gonna end up the man for the job. I think I think there's a lot of layers to looking at this manager signing. I think he has a very exciting style of play for fans to watch. I think he has relationships built in with a few important players, and I think he's gonna fit the state. We're kind of in a state where there's kind of nowhere to go but up, and we kind of are forced to just buy fully into his tactics. And I think his tactics, I think we're saying he's not going to be involved too much in transfers, but his tactics kind of that he's bringing, we're going to need to bring in players to fit that. So I'm sure he's going to have some sort of say, but of course the final say will land with the board, Paul Winstanley, directors, all those people. So starting off, kind of background, give a little background on him. Started off with Manchester City's developmental squad. That's kind of his first big manager position. This was under Pep, and it was during a time that both Romeo Lavia and Cole Palmer were present and did work under him. I think that's some good news. Obviously, Cole Palmer is a key player, and Romeo Lavia was looking to be kind of definitely a key position that we needed. We really needed that more traditional DM that could kind of sit a bit more than Caicedo and a lot a bit more than Enzo. I think so I'm very excited to see what he does with those players. And then from there he went to Parma, and then after that Leicester, in which we saw they won the Champions League, Champions League. Woo. They won the championship. Yeah, so getting into his style of play, I think this is probably one of my more preferred kind of tactics and methods. The way he sets up from his defense to his attack. His system is very much so built around a lot of short passing. We're gonna look to keep possession, and I think that was a place that we were kind of ending up in wanting to be. Um, we kind of were showing the ability to do that towards the end of Poch's kind of reign at Chelsea. But now we're bringing a manager who we feel can instill this from day one and throughout a preseason, get us rolling into the season. So yeah, a lot of short passes. A lot of our attacks will start from the keeper. The keeper will be heavily involved with the ball at his feet. Same things with our center backs, but that's kind of more of a norm in today's game. So it looks like we will need to kind of look at a new goalie, but I'll get into kind of the players and positions that this style of play will highlight and the transfer needs that will come through with it. So like I said, we love to maintain possession, and this often will force teams into mid to low blocks of defending. We've seen some of our players kind of struggle against that when we kind of were able to kind of put teams in those positions. We've just shown kind of just the inability, the lack of creativity, lack of personnel to kind of break these lines and kind of show that we can kind of finish off the attacks with the style of play we want. We talk like we want to keep possession, but that comes with having to make very key, precise passes in the final third from different angles. And I think that that's something that this preseason, this team is definitely going to have to focus on, bringing players to support and supplement that style and just develop. Hopefully, Enzo Maresca shows ability to develop these players from a preseason better than Poch did. We almost looked unprepared coming into the season for The style, if you do want to call it that, we kind of looked like identity list, like in terms of our style of play throughout the year. So very excited to just see a manager come in and just instill just some structure and standard into a team. Going on to the midfield, kind of how he likes to set up. He will invert his fullbacks, which will allow his kind of aids, his midfielders to begin our attacks higher, giving some more room for the goalie and center backs to push the ball up the field. So those eights and center mids will start a little bit higher, and they will kind of attack the channels on inside of the wingers. I think this fits Caicedo and Enzo very well. One of the key attractions to us hiring Maresca was he laid out a plan explicitly that featured Enzo. It was a big investment for Bowley and Igbali, so I think that was definitely something that very much so made him an attractive candidate. That he kind of instilled belief in Todd and Igbali that he can kind of get Enzo kind of playing up to that price tag consistently. He's definitely shown flashes. I think he has. I think from an athleticism standpoint, there are some things that kind of make me a bit nervous having him as a Premier League midfielder, but I think he more so than makes up for it with other abilities, and I think with a proper manager, he can definitely kind of hide the downs to the very few downs to Enzo's game and just really just let the great qualities, passing, dribbling the ball at his feet, even shooting, just let those shine. I think we saw flashes, but I think there has been a lack of consistency to his game that Chelsea fans just started to grow frustrated with. Yeah, kind of pushing back into the defense, not just our back line, but how we like to set up the moment we lose the ball. Maresco's obsessed with regaining possession quickly. I think that kind of makes sense how he kind of highlighted Gallagher as a player he likes. Personally, I think that is a quality Gallagher has, but I think there's some other qualities that Maresco kind of requires out of that position that Gallagher might have shown to struggle with, especially if this style of play is going to be known to kind of push these teams back into mid to low blocks. I think that's kind of where we had frustrations with Gallagher with his passing in the final third. We obviously know he has a shot on him, but obviously to consistently get these performances against top teams, you might need a little bit more than that. So curious. I'm one who wants to keep Gallagher around, so I'm very curious on how Enzo uses him, if he stays around, and how he develops him as a player. I definitely was very excited to have Gallagher around prior to his loan, and then he showed his abilities on his loan at Crystal Palace, and kind of came back and kind of, um, I think he struggled in terms of like sitting with the team in terms of offensively. Obviously, he can run for days and is very aggressive in winning back the ball. I think decision making still needs to improve within his defensive skills, and I'm kind of getting wrapped up in the players here a bit too early. Kind of back to Maresca's tactics. He wants to ensure that teams only operate on one side of the field when they do have the ball. Obviously, we want to keep possession with him. He's a guy that wants to keep possession for long periods of the game, but when we do lose the ball, obviously need a plan. So he likes to regain possession quickly and just ensure that teams stay and can only operate on one area of the field. I think last season at points, we saw teams just kind of be able to ping the ball, operate whichever where they want on the field. We weren't really dictating the play in any way from defense to midfield to offense. We weren't really able to really show that we can really handle games and take control games. I think we were putting a lot of pressure on our defense, which would sometimes live up to it, and sometimes they would just fold when the performances weren't all there. But I think much of that was to the blame of the structure. Yes, players always deserve some of the blame, but I think with this I think this is going to be a clear, more just a better structure that our players will be able to grasp. I think it fits their games a bit better. And then that being said, there's obviously some players who might find this a little bit more challenging, find aspects of this structure to not fit their game as well. And then we will need to bring in some players to supplement those positions. I think, like I said, first things first, I think the goalie is kind of a very clear one. I was happy with how Petrovic played last year. I think he did enough of what he needed to do, but obviously we're going to need a goalie who's extremely comfortable with the ball at his feet, great decision making, able to find passes. Mostly these passes will be relatively short, it sounds like, and we'll work our way up the field. But I mean, sometimes it's really nice to have a goalie that can find that cutting pass and maybe skip a level and start our attack a step earlier. I think that's always nice to have. Um, I'm hearing Diogo Costa, my fault, and Grobel. I think those are two very good goalies. Those are names I've recently heard. Besides those, haven't heard too many names flying around, so very eager to find out who we're identifying there to kind of fill that gap. I think it's a clear need that we've kind of misidentified for some years now, so hopefully we can set a standard there and just have some structure and somebody that we can rely on week in, week out. That being said, I think Petrovic is a really good young keeper. I think he will have a great career. Do I think will it be at a club the size of Chelsea? I'm not quite sure. I do think he'll be a number one in a very good league for sure. Um, having being that said about players that are here, we obviously know that he's worked with Palmer and Lavia in the past. I'm really excited for what he can do with Lavia. I think he Maresca is very key on having deep lying playmakers back there that are also are very smart. Obviously, they're gonna be used to dictate play defensively. They're gonna have to switch on quickly to kind of set our press when we lose the ball. So kind of knowing where to be proactively, I think, is something that Mercer's gonna kind of have to instill in these defenders. I think, defensive midfielders and midfielders. I think Caicedo is a bit more knowledgeable when it comes to positioning and kind of sensing proactively where dangers may be than Enzo. I think part of Mercer's plan is going to be to kind of have Enzo's attacking qualities shine and kind of supplement that, whether it's with an inverted fullback or even bringing in a more traditional DM on the pitch like Lavia, or maybe we're going to sign a DM. I don't know. We seem to not like to sign those, even though we really need them. Um, yeah, I think Lavia has the offensive abilities of the deep lying playmaker, and he also has that prediction. Prediction. He has the positioning of a traditional CM CDM that will kind of allow the flexibility and the changing of formation shapes. Not necessarily systems, but I think the way he likes to play, our shape will often change, and it's kind of important to have a DM who can um, kind of stay turned on both defensive and offensive ends. When we kind of get caught up, kind of overloading the attacking end, they can kind of help snuff out some dangerous passes that the opposition may make, some counter attacks that may occur when we kind of overload kind of on the attack. Because the way that this the way that this tactic kind of lines up, we might often have five lined up in the attack and then two defenders back, and then it's kind of going to be very key for a CDM to make the correct decision to kind of set up his defenders correctly on the counter attack. I think we're gonna have definitely more of a need to have that knowledge on the field. I think Thiago Silva was kind of acting as that second coach and kind of getting players kind of positioned for them. Maybe I don't. I would love to kind of bring. I'll get to that kind of our center back ads in a second. But I think definitely kind of that on field leader. I'm not saying we need to sign a 38-year-old, but just somebody with experience. I think it would be nice to have if we do kind of have three acting center backs back there. We have Colwell and Fofana. I think that I would like to see develop on the two ends there, but would like to see kind of a very experienced central, explicitly central back, center back that can kind of man the middle of the three. I think we've struggled to find somebody that can play there outside of Thiago Silva for a few seasons now, so that would be really nice to address. And I think that it will kind of help develop our center backs because they'll be able to kind of have the less pressure on the ends there. I think we saw kind of Rudiger, his career kind of take off because he was able to really find a explicit role there. And same thing with Christensen, who would play on the other side of of a Thiago Silva sitting there. So I'm not saying we need to get a direct replacement for Thiago Silva. I think that would be extremely hard, but definitely somebody with that experience that can man that central of the three center backs. I think often this positioning will look like a four, but with that kind of inverted fullback who kind of sits in the midfield, it will often act in transition. Will often act like a third center back. So definitely a key position there. I think very exciting, all these tactical changes. Very excited for some of the things that we were doing last year well, the very few things. Some of those things will remain in the team. I think that's obviously very good. You don't want to throw out everything. Sometimes it's nice to have some good qualities to keep around. I don't think Poch left us many, unfortunately, but it seems like Enzo's going to be acting on the good, throwing out the bad, and just bringing in his style of play. One thing I am looking forward to seeing and will be kind of just very explicitly looking at and speaking on is his ability to just set a standard at a club. I think the standards of Chelsea have dipped very sharply. Even within the year we won the Champions League, I kind of felt standards dropping, but that was kind of able to hide under such an amazing trophy win. And then from there, we kind of saw the true drop off of kind of what was kind of starting, and it's just been a downhill since. So, need to really reinstill a standard at a club, not just that's just some sort of standard, and get these players kind of developed. We bought a lot of and invested in a lot of young players, so that comes with an explicit need to develop them. I think we're bringing in a manager that has shown he can do that. I'm a little less worried about his last club being a championship club. I think he's been around. I know he wasn't at a head coaching, managerial, even assistant for the first team capacity, but I think even being around a big club like City and being around just those standards, obviously it's important for those development team managers to really set a standard. I think that's kind of one of their key jobs more so than employing tactics. I think they're often employing the tactics of another manager, which in this case was Pep. So I mean that's kind of a good manager to kind of be under the tutelage of and just kind of employing his rules and regulations. I think it doesn't get much better in terms of standards. And when it comes to Pep. But I'm not really focusing on his relation directly with Pep. I'm not gonna start calling him the second coming of Pep. Seriously, I am very excited though. I do joke with my friends that he is gonna bring us back to the promised land, and I do hope so. I like this style of play is one probably that I do prefer keeping possession, getting it back quickly. I think we do have the players to kind of instill this, and if we supplement it correctly, I think it can work out very well. So very feeling much more optimistic than I was kind of at the end of the year, especially much more optimistic before that little five whatever game stretch of goodness we had. So feeling better. I think we are moving in the right direction, and I think it's on the board now to get the right players in, and sometimes more importantly, get the right players out. I think you've kind of saw what players will kind of be highlighted in terms of being able to play already in this style of play and needing to be be moved on to a new team because maybe they don't necessarily fit perfectly into this system. I'll be going over the players we do have, doing kind of a keep and sell kind of episode, and you'll kind of figure out where I stand on the players then. But had to get the news on the manager in. Thank you for watching, and this has been Fan Therapy. Talk to you later.